shit. Oh, whatever. What?
How long do we have?
5 nights.
You are all fundamentally to blame for this mess that I am wearing right now. This is a nice shirt, though. I mean, look at that. That is nice. It's got a pocket, and, like, there's a little Freddy peeking out of your pocket right there. I'll put a link in the description where you can get it on Etsy. It's pretty good. Five Nights at Freddy's. Oh boy. This is gonna be kind of a laid-back video. I don't have, like, much of a script. I just kind of have an idea of what I'm gonna talk about. And, so, Five Nights at Freddy's. They're still making those? Oh, they have no intention of stopping anytime soon, little boy. I'm gonna cut that. Cut that out of the video. Don't leave that in. What the fuck is this thing? Why do I get... Alright. Now I look weird. So Five Nights at Freddy's has had a bit of an interesting story. I just kind of wanted to get up here and talk a bit about something that I've noticed with this series, and maybe some of you have noticed as well. And if you haven't, then I'm sorry. I'm just gonna kind of be a bit of a hater right now for a minute. But I'm not completely, okay? We're not gonna completely make everyone sad. We're certainly not gonna be one of those assholes who goes up here and goes, certain game is the best game. Out! Out! Get out of my sight! Leave! Leave now! There is a very clear schism in the Five Nights at Freddy's series where you can tell there is a fundamental difference between releases prior to this occasion and preceding it. Everything after Ultimate Custom Night is not made by Scott Cawthon alone, and is made instead with the help of a substantial enough sized company named Steelwool, who is known for something with Mars. Quar. What the fuck's Quar? Battle for Gate 18. I'm not quite sure I follow here. Oh, what the hell? They're dead! You just dropped a building on them! And then covered them in the fog! That's fucked up. I can see why Scott chose these guys. They're already known for making horror. Mars Odyssey. Apparently. That's probably what I was thinking of. To me, I see the Steelwool games sort of in the same vein as, like, I don't know, The Mandalorian with Star Wars. Star Wars is about Darth Vader. Five Nights at Freddy's is about William Afton. Both villains, both kill children, both get trapped in metal suits of armor that are brutally agonizing and just make them even more destructive as a result. Both burned to death. Wait a minute. Hold on. This was a way better analogy than I thought it was. Anyway, the point is, Five Nights at Freddy's, it's the 6th game. Star Wars, it's the 6 movies, okay? That's what it is, alright? Everything else is cool. There's some good stuff in there. There's some not as good stuff in there. There's Matt Pat Mpreg in there. Not in Star Wars, to my knowledge. I don't know. I haven't read, like, all the books or whatever. There might be something like that. Scott Cawthon made this big laundry list. If I can find it, I'll put it up. Of upcoming Five Nights at Freddy's projects he was working on after Pizzeria Simulator. But this video isn't really about him. Except it completely is, except it almost entirely isn't. It's about Steelwool. Hi, Steelwool. It's me. Steel Wool came into the franchise at Five Nights at Freddy's VR Help Wanted. Scott had them develop Help Wanted, mainly due to their work on the Mars game I just mentioned and completely forgot the name of already. Mars Odyssey, that was it. I'm so smart, oh my god. I'm so good. Now, I'm not sure Scott Cawthon originally intended to stick with Steel Wool this whole time. Actually, I'm pretty sure he didn't. I think he just thought he would get Steel Wool on board for Help Wanted because of their prior VR experience, and he would find some other AAA studio to make Security Breach, because they were listed as two very unrelated, different, well, seemingly unrelated, different things in his big list, and he hadn't named who was working on what at the time, but I imagine he probably thought he worked so well with Steel Wool with Help Wanted already, may as well stick with them for Security Breach, and so he did. Since then, Steel Wool has been responsible for four FNaF projects, with a fifth one on the way very soon. Help Wanted, Security Breach Ruin, and Help Wanted 2. With the trailer of Secrets of the Mimic having come out actually kind of a while ago, it's just time is a very, very confusing subject for people like me of, fleeting happiness. Now, I've actually liked all of these games, to varying degrees and for varying reasons. But I've liked them all, and that's important to mention, I feel like. Especially considering this video is kind of about something kind of negative pertaining to these projects. I love them all. Help Wanted 1, that was Help Wanted fun. Kill me now. Help Wanted 2, Yuan Kazoo. I even like Security Breach a lot. I think people are entirely too harsh on it, especially people that are named Phil. But, I don't know, something about these games just feels different, if that makes any sense. When you move from one guy to, like, a team of people, that's, like, crazy. But that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm more so talking about the narrative of the series, the direction that everything is going, the storyline, the lore, if you will, even though that word has been completely beaten upside the head to death to the point where it absolutely means nothing and has since become a way less cool way of saying story, even less so than just saying story. And you know what? I think I figured out why. Except I kind of haven't. But I kind of have. Maybe. I don't know. Let's talk about that. The original 6 games had a very specific magic to them, let's call it. Except that's not what it was. It was more like a festering vitriol and anguish. Specifically, the first 4 Five Nights at Freddy's games all had this very similar storyline formula. The first 3, you got phone calls throughout the nights. They detailed, I guess, events that happened in the series, what the atmosphere of the place was like when it was opened, what the company would say, what the employees would say, what whatever phone guy was doing in the company at that specific moment in history would say. He's a very versatile and very loyal employee. I feel like he doesn't get enough credit. He's like a spokesperson and a security guard and like a robot in Five Nights at Freddy's 3. He does it all. And then aside from that, there was the weird Easter eggs and secrets hidden in these games that detailed very vaguely some idea of what was really happening. The weird mini-games, the newspaper clippings, the actual dialogue and, like, scenes almost in Five Nights at Freddy's 4, they were very small, very vague, got some points across, though, that have stuck ever since, except for that time when we all thought Springtrap was Michael for some reason. I was one of those people. I can't even act like I'm better than that. But why did we do that? Why did we think that? That's ridiculous. We're stupid. We're stupid, dumb people. Sister Location was kind of the first big divergence from the standard formula because the nights were all completely different. You could kind of move around when they let you. Each night almost consisted of, like, mini-game style things, like, kind of small, like, shitty FNaF fan game type gameplay things, all, like, connected together through this story, which was told by many voice actors and plenty of dialogue and events, and it was very much a linear experience. But I think the thing that helped it was that it was part of what had already been established as a large-scale, large-scope, 4-part saga. There was already a big timeline there that the game could fit into somewhere, influence the games it surrounded, and be allowed to be cryptic and vague like the other ones were because of that. It's just this one small window that's very clear on a building filled with foggy windows, you know? If you look through that window, you get a nice, clear picture, and by looking through the foggy ones, you can kind of figure out everything that's happening inside the building. And lastly, if we're not counting Ultimate Custom Night, and let's be honest, why would we? That game is, got about as much story going on as, I don't know, Chipper and Sons Lumber Company. I mean, yeah, it's there if you want to look for it, but nobody gives a damn, alright? You play it because you want to see Astral Spiff teach his newborn infant. But Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzeria Simulator is an extremely linear narrative experience. It has so much dialogue, and so much story, and so much of the game just outwardly telling you information, like to an almost uncanny degree at the time. It was kind of freaky, it was surreal, and it was supposed to be, because Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzeria Simulator was made that way because there was no story left to hide. I don't think Midnight Motorist was meant to be all that confusing. I think Scott thought in his head while he was making it that this is going to be very clear and concise, and people are finally going to get the answers they want, and then unintentionally made everyone go into a downward spiral of hate. Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator was the end to a 6-part series, and it served its job as that as well as one could possibly ask. I would still submit to this day that that is Scott Cawthon's greatest video game he's ever made. So where do I get off sitting here yapping into a microphone about this fucking series? Well, I'll tell you. You see, Help Wanted had a bunch of mini-games, and they were all fun and wacky, and I love them all. But it was also essentially, I guess, rebooting the series, one could say. This is something I think Matt Pat put really well in his video, or one of his videos about Help Wanted. It's almost acting like a restart on the series. Which is why I think it's so mind-boggling that people are like, "Wow, it should have ended at 6! Just ignore the rest. It can just end at 6, dude. It's the other games aren't hurting anybody here. Throughout the game, you collect these weird purple bleh tapes, and there's a room, and you can listen to the tapes in the room. These tapes very clearly detail events that happened concisely. This right away kind of establishes more of an upfront nature to Steel Wool's FNaF projects and the series moving forward. One that is continued throughout Security Breach. Except it isn't. You see, Security Breach, the Ruin DLC, and as it appears from the trailers and from what our limited knowledge on the matter is, Secrets of the Mimic, all seem to be treading very much so in this linear story. You're playing as a character, we're giving you their name, we're giving you their personality. They have a personality, even if it's horrible like Gregory's. I'll give you that. Gregory's a little shit and I hate him. I don't want to save him, Cassie. Can't we just leave? Let's go get ice cream. There's a story, you have objectives, there's plenty of dialogue, character interactions, almost character arcs as well. All that good stuff. The problem here, however, is that they also don't do that. Security Breach actually has like 7 different endings and like a million different secrets and weird, unexplainable, inexplicable, bizarre shit like this and this and this and this. And here's where I think the problem comes. Steel Wool or Scott Cawthon or whoever's in charge of this whole story operation anyway is trying to have their cake and Eat It Too. I think a very good comparison to make to this franchise right now is Bendy and the Ink Machine. Bendy and the Ink Machine, and even more so its sequel, Bendy and the Dark Revival, are both games that are also in the mascot horror genre, and both have kind of vague, cryptic storylines. But the thing I think that makes Bendy more effective at it right now is the fact that Bendy and the Dark Revival and the Ink Machine, but I felt it more so in the Dark Revival, tells its story just straight up front to the audience, to the viewer, and gives out very clear details throughout the course of its game. Not hidden in any mini games or anything where you have to read between the lines. It straight up, flat out tells you information. There are things that it doesn't tell you that you can infer from the information you've been given, but it doesn't make you have to blindly speculate and theorize like Five Nights at Freddy's is so known for. And I think this is probably the way better direction for the series to go in, at least in terms of the Steel Wool free roam games. I think the VR games can do the weird cryptic stuff effectively. I think that's been proven twice now with the Help Wanted games. Help Wanted 2 is, I would say, better than the first game, and it does that shit all the time. But Security Breach and Ruin both do this thing where they give you a clear story and then hint to like 13 other different weird plot lines going on at the same time that are like, just what? What are you talking about, dude? And this complete clash of two wildly different types of storytelling working against each other in one game, I think overall leads to a lot of fans kind of feeling very, I guess, unsatisfied in the end, or in the many endings that you decide to arbitrarily put into the game, because again, it makes it seem more mysterious or more in line with the rest of the series, when in reality, I feel like Security Breach should have only had one ending, because it didn't need the other ones. The other ones just confused the hell out of people. We still don't really agree on which one is the real one, even though I feel like we've kind of come to a consensus on what that is, but it's who knows anymore. And by the way, don't even get me started on these goddamn books! I mean this completely wholeheartedly, as someone who really likes reading more than most people my age probably do, like reading books. I must have all the time in the goddamn cosmos to sit down and read every single Tales from the Pizzaplex book. I loved the Silverized trilogy. That is some, in my mind, has some of the peak Five Nights at Freddy's content in those books. But these Pizzaplex books, they are whittling down my sanity. I'm not even saying they're bad. I don't know. I haven't read, like, any of them. Maybe, like, one time, because I was bored. Speaking of the Silverized, and the Fazbear's Frights books, for that matter, the good thing about those books is that they came out, and they had things that subtly, in some way, shape, or form, affected the main story of the games, and detailed, to some degree, things that were to come in the games, or clarify things that were confusing, but they were never essential reading to understand everything that was going on. That was what worked so well about them. And if a concept which came from the books were to come up at some point in the franchise, which it rarely did, it would be very soon after. Now, the community of fans who have read the books and the community of fans who haven't are so alienated from each other that half of the people, when the Jackie's Box song came out and got popular, who heard it, had no idea who the fuck Edwin and David were and thought they were completely made-up characters.
Who the fuck is that?
Comparing this again to Bendy and the Ink Machine with their books, Dreams Come to Life, The Illusion of Living, and so on and such forth, those books detail more specifics on the kind of atmosphere of the studio and the events of those games. But in Bendy and the Dark Revival, all of the essentials are given to you right there, even with some new stuff. And you don't need to read the books to know what's kind of going on in the games. They tell and show you that. And I do firmly believe that this is the reason why the newer Five Nights at Freddy's games, I feel like, fail to cultivate the same interest in figuring out their plots as the previous ones had. It's not because the plots are suddenly ludicrous or ridiculous. Bitch, they always have been. From the first game, these were haunted robots, and from the second one, they were all killed by Grimace, and brought back to life by a sad mime. And by the third one, we had a Metal Man zombie rabbit. Give me a break. The fucking Mimic is hardly a difficult concept to grapple with for this franchise. I just think the way they've introduced the Mimic, the way they've characterized it, and the way that this series has been treating overall, relaying all of this information as well as every other piece of information in the Steel Wool era of games, has been very much so not on the mark. They want to tell a story in a traditional linear format, and they want to have the cryptic messagery and Easter eggs and big scavenger hunt extravaganza of the original series. And I think that's a bunch of hoopla. I think they should just stick to one thing per game. I think, you know, feel free to go back and forth, but I don't think trying to mix these two completely different things together is the move. Anyway, I've been yapping for a while. I'm kinda tired. I wanna lay down. Go fuck yourself.